All right, so we took a look at the size of neutral atoms, but ions are also going to be different sizes than their neutral atoms. So ions have different sizes than the neutral atom. And that makes sense because electrons determine the volume of the atom, and ions have different amounts of electrons than our neutral atoms, so obviously they're going to have different sizes. So let's see what happens to the size of the atoms when we add or take away electrons. Let's think about taking away electrons. So we have lithium and then lithium plus, right? In lithium, we've got our nuclei, and then we've got our n equals 1 orbital, and then our n equals 2 orbital. Have 2 electrons in the n equals 1, and then 1 electron in the n equals 2. And then in lithium, we have a similar case, or lithium plus, except now we remove this outer electron, right? This outer electron no longer here, which means this overall n equals 2 orbit is not here. And as you can tell, the atom got smaller, and that makes sense, right? Electrons make up the volume, less electrons, less volume. So in general, cations, they lose electrons, and so they become smaller. So a cation will always be smaller than its neutral counterpart. What about when they gain electrons? Well, we have oxygen and then oxygen 2 minus, right? Either way, we have 8 protons in one of these. So we've got our nuclei in the middle. And then we've got our n equals 1 and n equals 2. Orbitals. And so then we've got 2 electrons here. And then for the case of oxygen, we're going to have 6 in the n equals 2. Here we'll have 2 on the inside, and now we're going to have 8 on the outside, right? That filled valence shell. And so while these two in this diagram look very similar, what's happening here is that the electrons that are in the same orbital are going to repel one another, right? Because like charges repel. So electrons repel one another. And since they're doing that, the atom gets bigger, right? We've added electrons. Electrons make up the volume of an atom. More electrons, bigger. So anions, they gain electrons, they get bigger. And here's just a little picture, right? Obviously, you don't have to copy this down or anything, but just to give you kind of an example and with some numbers if you want to take a look at some numbers. So you've got lithium right here, 134 picometers in radius, and then you got lithium plus 90, right? So it shrinks. Same thing here, oxygen, 73 picometers, give it two extra electrons. Now it's 126 picometers. So again, cations are smaller, anions are bigger.